Have you ever found yourself in this phase? When everything around you suddenly feels unbearably heavy, doors that once opened effortlessly now slam shut. Relationships that once felt close suddenly grow distant. You try, you stay patient, you wait. Yet the universe remains silent, as if it's ignoring you, or worse, pushing against you. Are you being punished? Did you do something wrong? Or is there something else happening behind that invisible veil? In today's video, I'll take you deeper into another perspective, one that Carl Jung and the most profound thinkers of our time once touched upon. That perhaps the universe isn't turning its back on you. It is simply doing exactly what it's meant to do, testing you, clearing out what no longer belongs, and waiting to see whether you are truly ready to step into an entirely new reality. This is not punishment. This is an invitation to begin the journey back to the strongest, most authentic version of yourself. There are moments in life when everything suddenly becomes difficult to grasp. You feel as though you're stuck in some invisible swamp. Nothing truly catastrophic happens, yet nothing flows smoothly either. The things that once excited you now feel dull. The relationships that once felt close seem to drift away slowly. Even you. Sometimes you can't quite recognize who you are anymore. This isn't a phase of tragedy. It's a phase of testing. But not testing in the human sense. It's a challenge posed by something far greater, something many call the universe. Carl Jung offered a profound concept that few fully understand: individuation, the journey of shedding old patterns to become your most authentic self. Yet Jung also emphasized, you cannot enter a new level of existence through mere desire. If you want to touch more profound truths and live in greater freedom, you must endure a harsh process, which he called the death of the old self. No one passes through the gateway of awakening without first tasting its bitterness. And the universe, even in its profound wisdom and love, does not make that path easy. When the universe prepares to shift your reality, it doesn't immediately bring in new things. First, it tests you. It checks if you're truly ready to release the old relationships that no longer align with you, habits that no longer nourish you, and beliefs that have become outdated. It will make you feel empty. It will make you doubt yourself. It will make you wonder, is something wrong with me? But no, nothing is wrong. You are being cleansed. You are being pushed into a stage where the universe needs you to separate from who you no longer are, so you can finally become who you are meant to be. This is why, just before life changes, it often gets worse. Not because you are unlucky, not because you are regressing, but because every old reality resists when you are about to step through a new threshold. You cannot bring old baggage into a new journey. You cannot continue being your former self if you wish to live a new life. And so, the universe, through events, through people, through emotions, begins asking you one simple yet profound question. Are you truly ready? The universe is not punishing you. It's clearing out what no longer belongs. When your life begins to drift into that hazy space between the familiar and the unfamiliar, when things that once worked suddenly stop, when people who were once close grow distant, when plans unravel, and even your sense of self feels heavier than ever, there's a powerful temptation that creeps into your mind, the belief that you're being punished. You start to wonder why everything seems to be falling apart at once. Why are doors closing? Why does nothing flow? Why is your energy depleted, no matter how much effort you make? It begins to feel like the universe is turning its back on you, like an invisible force is stripping away everything you've built. But Carl Jung would offer you a radically different lens. He didn't believe in the randomness of punishment. He believed in cycles of transformation, periods where things must fall apart not to destroy you, but to create space for something more profound, more aligned, more true. The universe, in its incomprehensible wisdom, never clears away without a purpose. It never dismantles without already holding the blueprint for something new. What you're experiencing is not rejection, it's purification. Just like when you decide to clean out a room you haven't touched in years, you have to pull everything out, shake off the dust, confront the clutter, and make the tough call to let go of what no longer serves. That process is messy, it's exhausting, and yes, it's filled with moments of hesitation and even grief. But you know that only when the room is emptied can it be rearranged into something fresh, something that genuinely reflects who you are now, not who you used to be. The universe operates similarly. It can't take you to the next level while you're still gripping tightly to what belongs to the previous chapter, the friendships that have become habits, the jobs that no longer inspire, the belief systems that once protected you but now only limit you. All of it must go so you can rise. Jung called this phase nigredo, a term borrowed from alchemy, representing the necessary death of the old self to allow for inner rebirth. In that darkness, all that is familiar dissolves, not as an end, but as preparation. You can't carry a suitcase stuffed with outdated memories and identities into a new land. And when you don't voluntarily let go, the universe will do it for you, not to hurt you, but to free you, even if you're not ready, even if you're still clinging. That's why when you feel like you're losing everything, what's happening is a release. When you feel alone, what's happening is an invitation to listen more deeply to your soul. When everything seems to pause, what's happening is the universe clearing the road ahead so you can walk into an entirely new chapter, one where you're no longer bound by outdated definitions of who you are. Because the truth is, if nothing around you changed, you'd have no reason to evolve. And if you don't grow, you can't step into a new reality. The universe is not punishing you, it's preparing you. It's ensuring that when the next door opens, you'll be light enough to walk through it, unburdened by the weight of your past. And the moment you understand that, when loss no longer feels like the end, but rather like sacred preparation, you'll start to see challenges not as enemies, but as quiet guides, clearing the way for a freer, deeper version of you to emerge finally. No one easily accepts unraveling, but letting go is where the real shift begins. No one embraces loss without resistance. Human instinct naturally fights anything that threatens security. So when the familiar begins to fall away, relationships that once nourished you now drifting, habits that once kept you safe now feeling heavy, plans suddenly stalling, you push back. You cling to what once worked. You wrestle with yourself late into the night, trying to find a reason to hold on. And eventually, you're not exhausted because life is cruel. You're exhausted because you're swimming against the current. That's where Carl Jung steps in with an uncomfortable truth. What you resist persists. Not because what you're facing is stronger than you. However, it is your resistance that keeps it alive. When you grip tightly to pain, to the question of why me, you anchor yourself to a chapter that's already ending. You remain stuck in a place the universe is gently but firmly trying to move you beyond. And yet, something strange happens when you let go. Not the resignation of defeat, but the surrender of awakening. When you whisper to yourself, maybe I don't have to understand everything. Maybe I need to trust and allow myself to flow. That is the moment of transition. In Jungian psychology, it's the tipping point, the death of the old ego and the quiet birth of the self. When you stop forcing things to follow your script, you open the door for a higher intelligence, what Jung called the transcendent function, to begin orchestrating from beyond your conscious control. And that's when the magic starts seeping in through cracks you thought were hopeless. You begin noticing uncanny synchronicities. People show up in your life with a calming familiarity. Opportunities you thought were closed suddenly reappear from unexpected places. Casual conversations happen to touch exactly the topic you've been grappling with. There's no longer a strained effort to make it work. Things start to move on their own, but this only happens when you stop trying to control. Like a boat stuck in a current, paddling against it does nothing but tire you out. But the moment you set down the oars and trust the water, the boat begins to move naturally forward. That's how the universe works. It's not here to hurt you, but it also won't let you carry old baggage into a new world. When you stop demanding everything go your way and instead begin to trust that things are unfolding as they must, you shift into a state of deep alignment. Jung called this synchronicity, the meaningful alignment of seemingly unrelated events that guide you precisely where you need to be. And suddenly you see what you were seeking wasn't control, wasn't certainty. It was the ability to trust the path even before you understand it. Letting go is not weakness. It's a signal that you're finally ready to evolve. And when you are brave enough to stop resisting, the universe, your quiet companion all along, can finally lead you to the life you've been aching for, even if you didn't yet know that's where you were headed. When you've let go, the final tests will come, and they're not what you expect. Once you've passed through the season of letting go and start feeling the quiet rhythm of life falling into alignment, there's something few people are prepared for: the final tests. The universe, or more accurately, the deepest levels of your consciousness, won't let you walk into your next chapter too easily. Not because it wants you to suffer, but because it needs to ensure that you've truly learned what the last season was trying to teach you. Carl Jung once said, "There is nothing more terrifying than facing yourself." And that's exactly what these final tests require. These tests don't show up as grand tragedies or loud collapses. They're subtle, familiar even, and that's what makes them so dangerous. An old adult reappears, bringing exactly the kind of energy that once broke you. An enticing opportunity arises, but only if you betray yourself just a little. A situation you've endured many times resurfaces, one where you've always stayed silent to keep the peace. These moments are not coincidences. They are deliberate invitations from the universe asking, have you changed? Or did you get quiet for a while? Have you truly learned to choose yourself? Or are you still tempted to revert to your old role when pressure hits? Will you have the courage to turn down something that looks almost like what you wanted, to wait for what's truly meant for you? Jung called this shadow integration, the moment when you stop running from your shadow and instead face it like an old companion. You no longer see an ex coming back as temptation, but as an opportunity to say, I'm not who I was. You no longer see a shiny but disrespectful offer as something you can't refuse, but as a final challenge to honor your boundaries. You no longer feel the need to shrink yourself to preserve harmony. You're ready to walk away when something no longer aligns with your truth. These final tests aren't here to defeat you. They're here to confirm you. Just like a martial artist must face their final challenge before stepping into a new mastery, you too must show that you no longer default to old patterns. The universe doesn't deal in punishment or rewards. It deals in reflections. And at this point in your growth, the feedback becomes crystal clear. When you stay loyal to your new self, new doors begin to open. When you decline the old, even if it feels safe or familiar, you send a signal that says, I am ready for something deeper. And the universe, like a wise and loving teacher, will nod in approval. It doesn't ask you to be perfect, but it does ask you to be honest. Honest enough to deserve the reality you say you want. And when you pass those final tests, not by conquering others, but by choosing yourself, something strange begins to happen. Life flows, things unlock, the heaviness lifts, not because you finally won, but because you've graduated. You've stepped out of the old classroom and into a new kind of space, one where you no longer have to fight to be who you are. You need to show up. When you step into a new reality, silence is no longer scary. There's something no one tells you about true transformation. It's quiet. There's no confetti, no cinematic soundtrack, no one handing you a trophy or announcing that you've made it. Real change, when it finally arrives, slips in silently. One ordinary morning, you realize that you no longer ache when you think about the past. You no longer feel the urge to prove yourself. You don't need to overload your schedule to feel worthy. You're no longer anxiously waiting for a message to know whether you're loved. Without effort or fanfare, you begin to walk without tension. You breathe more easily. You sit by yourself and no longer feel alone. This is how you know. You've stepped into the new reality the universe has been preparing for you all along. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you make peace with the shadow, when you pass the final tests, when you stop resisting, that is when you've done the work. And in return, the universe gives you a reward that is neither flashy nor loud, but profoundly priceless. Stillness. But this stillness is not the same as isolation. It's not the emptiness of lack. It's the spaciousness of fullness. It's not the silence that stirs anxiety, but the kind that lets you hear the voice within more clearly. You no longer feel abandoned or left behind. On the contrary, you feel surrounded by a presence so gentle, it almost startles you. Nothing grand is happening. And that's how you know. You've changed. Before, silence frightened you. You feared being forgotten. You feared being unimportant. You feared you had done something wrong. But now you realize stillness is the clearest proof that you no longer need external noise to validate your worth. You've come home to yourself, and that is enough. In the U.S., a culture where busyness is worshipped and success is measured by speed, this might sound completely counterintuitive. But the truth is, only when you're brave enough to slow down can you finally sync with what's truly meant for you. No more chasing, no more proving, no more begging, only presence. Peaceful, grounded, and deep. And then the magic begins. The right people find you, without persuasion. The right opportunities arrive, without self-betrayal. The most meaningful experiences unfold when you've stopped trying to control everything. This is when you become the most synchronized version of yourself. Not someone trying to fit in. Not someone chasing validation. Just you, whole, honest, and at peace. The universe doesn't give you a new reality because you won or achieved something monumental. It gives it to you because you finally let go. You let go of who you thought you had to be. You let go of old attachments. You let go of your fear of stillness. And in letting go, you opened. And in opening, you allowed the quietest but most powerful miracle to flow in, wholeness. And that is the real magic. If you're still in the dark, still questioning the path you're walking, remember this. Not all silence is abandonment. Sometimes, silence is simply the pause the universe gives you, so you can finally hear the voice within. When you let go, when you stop forcing, and when you find the courage to walk through those final tests, the miracle won't come knocking with fireworks. It will arrive like a soft breeze, like the quiet peace you feel when you realize you don't need to become anyone else anymore. You only need to be yourself. And that is the key that unlocks the new reality. If this video has touched something deep within you, I invite you to stay with Light Through Shadows, a space where every challenge is not only acknowledged but transformed through understanding and companionship. Hit subscribe if you'd like to continue this journey with me. And before you go, I leave you with a simple but essential wish. May you always be strong enough to stand in the dark until you become the light.